picture this. It's early morning, Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026.
Okay.
The sun is just barely starting to crest over the horizon, casting that pale, grayish, pre-dawn light across the road. A woman named Tricia is alone in her car.
Right?
The clock on her dashboard reads exactly 6:17 a.m. Suddenly, her phone rings. It's her dad.
And this is the call that changes everything.
Yeah, exactly. Before he even gets a full word out, the entire atmosphere inside that car changes. His demeanor's it's completely wrong. He sounds subdued, he sounds tearful, which is entirely out of character for him.
It is terrifying when it's your dad,
Oh, absolutely. And then he delivers the kind of gut punch that splits your life into a permanent before and after. He says, "Sis, I have some bad news. Allie's passed away."
Man, it is literally the call we all dread. And to understand the sheer shock of that moment, you have to know who Allie was.
Right, tell us about her.
So Allie Hummel was Tricia's little sister by 2 years. She was only 36 years old. A dedicated nurse with this incredibly vibrant, larger-than-life personality. She loved glam. She loved pink.
Yeah, her niece affectionately called her Auntie Bling Bling.
Exactly, Auntie Bling Bling. She was just full of life. She was the absolute last person in the world you would expect to be caught at 36.
She really was. And the reason we are pulling you, our listener, into this specific devastating moment is because today's deep dive is about unraveling a chilling, actively unfolding death investigation happening right now in New London, Missouri.
Yeah, and it's a complicated one.
It really is. We are tracing a timeline of escalating domestic terror that was meticulously hidden behind the facade of a picture-perfect medical marriage. We're going to deconstruct the psychological trap of abuse, unpack the forensic mysteries of her final hours, and follow this family's desperate, ongoing quest for justice.
And we're bringing you into this investigation alongside us. We will reconstruct this timeline step by step because the details of this case and the systemic failure surrounding it, they challenge everything we think we know about where danger truly lies.
Right. So let's rewind the clock 4 years to 2022. This is the origin. Allie is at a highly vulnerable point in her life.
Yeah, she's going through a lot.
She was. She is finalizing a painful divorce from her first husband, a split that was caused by infidelity. And like anyone coming out of a profound betrayal, she just desperately wanted to feel valued. She wanted to feel loved and, treated like a princess.
And enter Andrew Hummel.
Enter Andrew.
Right, so Andrew is highly charismatic. He is successful. Crucially, she is a practicing anesthesiologist.
Which is a huge detail.
It's massive. It's a title that carries a tremendous amount of social prestige and financial stability. He zeroes in on Allie, and for their very first date, he doesn't take her to grab a casual cup of coffee. He flies her to a George Strait concert at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City.
I mean, wow. He goes massive right out of the gate.
Yeah, no half measures.
He paints this picture of a lavish, dream-come-true romance filled with big trips and great adventures. He swoops in like a savior. And things move at an absolute breakneck speed.
Yeah.
By the spring of 2023, they are suddenly married.
Just like that.
Just like that. There's no engagement announcement, no big buildup, just a quiet, unannounced marriage. But almost immediately after the paperwork is signed, the fairy tale begins to fracture.
The shift is incredibly jarring. Following this whirlwind romance, Allie suddenly starts pulling away from her family.
Which is a huge red flag.
Huge. She misses gatherings, always armed with some vague excuse. But there was one event they did attend together, her sister Anne's gender reveal party.
Okay.
And at this joyous family celebration, Andrew inexplicably flies into a violent rage at the dad-to-be.
Wait, at a gender reveal?
Yeah, a completely disproportionate, alarming display of anger out of nowhere.
That is so wild. When people hear stories like this, they often use the phrase, "she fell for him," as if it were a clumsy accident. And I've always hated that phrasing.
Yeah, it blames the victim a bit.
It totally does. It's more like a Venus flytrap. You don't fall into a Venus flytrap, you are lured in. It secretes this beautiful, sweet nectar, the stadium concerts, the lavish trips, the promises of unwavering protection.
That's a really good analogy.
Thanks. You step inside because it looks like a safe, beautiful place to rest. And it is only when you are completely inside, when the marriage certificate is signed and your lives are entangled, that the trap snaps shut. So let me ask you, at what point does the isolation become a calculated weapon rather than just, newlywed bliss?
Well, that is the core mechanism of control, right? In the early days, abusers often frame this isolation as romance. They say things like, We don't need anyone else. It's just you and me against the world.
Right, which sounds flattering at first.
It flatters the victim completely. But functionally, by cutting the victim off from their support network, the abuser removes all reality checks. If Allie is isolated, there is no one around to say, hey, his reaction at the gender reveal was not normal behavior.
Yeah, nobody to ground her in reality.
Exactly. And the psychological isolation quickly manifests physically. By the summer of 2023, during those sweltering, muggy Missouri summer days, her family notices Allie is constantly wearing long-sleeved clothing.
Oh, man. She is just baking in the heat, using layers of fabric to hide the brutal reality of her new life.
Yeah.
That physical isolation laid the groundwork for what happened next as we move into late 2023 and 2024. The facade really starts to crumble, but only in secret. Allie starts secretly documenting her own nightmare, creating this terrifying digital trail.
She began sending what her family calls just-in-case photos.
Just in case something happens to her.
Exactly. And these are deeply disturbing images she sent to her family. Photos of her with black eyes, her face completely swollen, patches of her hair physically ripped out, marks on her cheeks and nose.
God, that is so hard to hear.
It is. And professionally, she was running from the truth as well. She constantly changed nursing jobs, moving from hospital to hospital.
Right, just to escape the inevitable questions from her coworkers in the break room. She knew as a nurse that other medical professionals would recognize the patterns of those bruises.
They absolutely would.
But the most visceral evidence of this escalation isn't just the photos, it's the Nest Cam footage.
Yeah, so Andrew had installed smart cameras inside their home, which is a pretty common feature in modern houses. But Allie had access to the cloud storage. In late 2024 and early 2025, she started quietly saving and sending clips of these assaults to her family.
I want to try and paint the scene of this footage for you, because the contrast is sickening. You have this very normal domestic setting. A Christmas tree is glowing softly in the background of their living room.
It looks so cozy.
Right, but their family dog is running around in absolute confusion and panic. And in the center of this cozy holiday scene, Allie is pinned down on a beanbag chair by her husband, who is significantly larger than her. You can hear her pleading on the audio, screaming, "Don't hurt me, help, help." And Andrew is just standing over her, taunting her.
The banality of the violence is what strikes investigators the most. He is completely comfortable committing these acts in his own living room under the gaze of his own cameras.
Which is terrifying.
It is. But violence rarely stays contained. And the tipping point happens in July of 2025.
Okay, what happened?
They are at a hotel in St. Louis, actually getting ready to fly out for a lavish trip to Jamaica for Allie's birthday.
The Venus flytrap is still offering up that sweet nectar.
A perfect way to put it. But the reality inside the trap is deadly. The police are called to the hotel because neighbors in the adjacent rooms hear a woman repeatedly screaming, "Get off me!" over and over.
Oh, wow. So people actually intervene.
Yeah, and when law enforcement arrives, the scene is grim. They find Allie down in the hotel lobby bathroom. She has a swollen lip and tells them Andrew assaulted her and strangled her multiple times to the point where she physically couldn't breathe.
That's attempted murder, essentially.
It's incredibly dangerous. And upstairs in their room, the police find blood on the hotel bed.
So this wasn't a gray area for the officers.
Not at all.
Andrew is arrested right there in the hotel room. He is charged with 2 counts of second-degree domestic assault. In Missouri, that is a Class D felony.
Which is very serious.
Very serious. But because he had her keys on him when he was arrested, Allie has to call her sister, Tricia, to come pick her up. And this leads to a conversation in Tricia's car that completely stopped me in my tracks when I first read about it.
Yeah.
Tricia looks at her sister and delivers this incredibly blunt warning. She says, "If you don't leave him, I'm going to bring you home in a body bag. So what are your burial preferences?"
A chilling thing to have to say to your sister.
Right. And Allie just laughed it off.
Yeah, and to anyone standing outside the cycle of abuse, that reaction sounds completely incomprehensible.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I have to admit, it makes zero logical sense to me. How does a victim reach that level of detachment? Your sister is essentially asking you how you want to be buried after your husband just strangled you, and your response is laughter.
It's so hard to grasp from the outside, but we have to look at the psychology of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, explain that.
When you are trapped in an abusive dynamic, fully acknowledging the true lethal danger you are in can mentally break you. The human brain protects itself. Victims minimize, they rationalize.
So it's a survival mechanism.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the psychological defense is fed by the abuser's predictable cycle. After a severe incident like the hotel strangulation, the cycle dictates that Andrew would shower her with apologies, tears, and false promises of reform.
And she wanted to believe it.
Allie desperately wanted the fairy tale to be real. On top of that, she felt this intense pressure to protect his career as a doctor, knowing that if he goes down, the entire life and financial security they built goes down with him.
Wow.
Yeah, so laughing at her sister's warning wasn't humor. It was a desperate deflection to avoid facing a reality that was simply too terrifying to process.
Man. And the tragedy is that the justice system ended up reinforcing her denial.
Mm.
We move into March of 2026, and the legal system just completely falters.
It really does.
Andrew takes a plea deal. Those severe felony strangulation charges are reduced to misdemeanors, and he just gets probation.
Probation for strangulation.
Yes. And before this plea deal, Allie had actually started filling out divorce papers. She was right on the edge of leaving. But when he gets off with a slap on the wrist, she chooses the marriage. She completely cuts off her family, telling them their intervention is causing legal issues for Andrew.
This is a massive systemic failure we need to deconstruct. I mean, how does a Class D felony for strangulation become a misdemeanor with probation?
It's infuriating. How does it happen?
Well, in our legal system, prosecutors are managing massively overworked dockets. They often weigh the risk of going to trial against the reward of a guaranteed, albeit lesser, conviction. When you have a wealthy defendant like an anesthesiologist who can afford high-powered defense attorneys, those attorneys will drag the process out.
Yeah, file endless motions, bury them in paperwork.
Exactly. They exhaust the prosecution's resources. Furthermore, if the victim, in this case Allie, who is deep in cognitive dissonance, is reluctant to testify against her husband, prosecutors lose their primary witness.
Right. Without her, they have a much weaker case.
Yeah. So a plea deal becomes the path of least resistance for the courts. But it sends a deadly message to the abuser. It says, your wealth and status can buy you out of accountability.
And it sends an equally deadly message to the victim. The system will not protect you, so you better appease your abuser. The isolation is now complete. The Venus flytrap is sealed tight.
It is.
And that brings us to June of 2026, mere weeks before her death. Even though her family is cut off, Allie is still talking to a couple of close friends. And one friend receives photos of Allie with her hands and legs completely scratched up. Allie tells her friend that Andrew pushed her down the stairs.
Which is terrifying escalation.
And there's another ominous detail lurking in the background. Tricia had previously noted seeing small vials in the couple's refrigerator, vials of ketamine and Ambien.
Yeah.
Allie had confided that Andrew would sometimes give her these drugs at home.
Which sets the stage for the morning of June 23rd, 2026, the morning of the phone call we started with.
Right. What was his story?
According to Andrew, he woke up in the middle of the night to find Allie unconscious. His story to her father and to the police was that she had eaten a sandwich by the bed, vomited, and because she was too sedate to have a gag reflex, she aspirated. He claimed he woke up about an hour too late to save her.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Wait, so you're telling me an airway expert, a board-certified anesthesiologist whose entire career is built on monitoring breathing and administering sedative sleeps through his wife, choking and aspirating right next to him in bed?
It defies basic logic, doesn't it?
It totally does.
It strains credulity to its absolute breaking point. Let's break down the medical mechanics here. Aspiration isn't just coughing on a crumb. In a medical context, aspirating means stomach contents, acid and fluids, bypass the body's defensive reflexes and enter the lungs.
Which sounds horrific.
It is.
Yeah.
It causes an immediate mechanical blockage of the airways and inflicts severe chemical burns on the delicate lung tissue. It is violent, and the body's natural response is to violently fight for air.
Right. Unless the body's natural defenses are completely paralyzed.
Precisely. Which brings us to the pharmacology of those vials in the fridge. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic. It disconnects the brain from sensory input. Ambien is a sedative hypnotic that depresses the central nervous system.
So they're powerful on their own.
Very. And when you combine them, you aren't just making someone sleepy. You are creating a profound synergistic effect that severely depresses respiratory drive and completely paralyzes the gag reflex. It is a cocktail that creates the exact physiological conditions for silent, lethal aspiration.
Man. And to add to the suspicion, Andrew gave authorities this bizarre, unverified story about the night before.
Oh yeah, this part is strange.
He claims that the evening prior, Allie was highly intoxicated, drove his truck with him in the passenger seat, rear-ended a semi-truck, was taken into police custody, and then released.
Which is a very elaborate story.
Very. It looks incredibly like he was laying groundwork to suggest her own intoxication from this alleged crash played a role in her being so sedate the next morning.
But law enforcement isn't taking his narrative at face value. They immediately ordered an autopsy and a full toxicology report.
Right. And if they found Ambien and ketamine in the fridge, the toxicology report isn't just going to be a simple positive or negative for drugs. They must be looking for a highly specific timeline of when those substances entered her bloodstream, right?
Exactly. They are looking for a chemical fingerprint. Toxicology will show the exact concentrations of every substance in her body. Medical examiners will look at the half-lives of these drugs to determine exactly when they were administered.
So they can piece together the timeline.
Yes. They are asking crucial questions like, were there levels of sedatives that go beyond recreational or prescribed use? Was this a lethal dose?
And I imagine they want to know who administered it.
Most importantly, yes. Given the specific combination of controlled hospital drugs, was this cocktail self-administered or was it administered by a medical professional who had the precise knowledge of how to suppress a human gag reflex?
While the police wait for that complex science to come back, Allie's sister Anne refused to just sit and wait in the dark.
She was incredibly brave.
She turns into a grieving investigator. Shortly after Allie's death, Anne gets Andrew on the phone and she hits record. She confronts him directly.
It is a harrowing piece of audio and doesn't hold anything back.
Yeah.
She says to him, "You beat the hell out of my sister, Andrew. You beat her black and blue. Why couldn't you have just loved her enough not to beat her?"
And his response is so eerie. It is evasive. It's bizarre. He doesn't aggressively deny it or show any outrage at the accusation. He just says, I did love her. I talked to every bird that flies by the window. I don't want this to be a nasty thing.
Such a strange thing to say.
Right. And then he says, if I could undo it, I would undo it. He's speaking in these weird, detached platitudes while his sister's demanding to know why her sibling is dead.
It is the carefully managed language of someone trying to control public relations, not someone devastated by an unexpected tragedy. And that brings us to another massive systemic failure: the professional shield his medical degree provided.
Yeah, we have to talk about this.
As of July 2026, despite a conviction for domestic assault, despite the hotel strangulation, Andrew Hummel remains a board-certified anesthesiologist.
It is just mind-boggling that someone could say those things on tape and have a criminal record for strangulation, yet society and the medical board completely bought his act.
Right.
I mean, how does a hospital human resources department even look at a candidate with a domestic violence conviction?
It reveals a terrifying blind spot in medical licensing. Medical boards are notoriously slow to act. They often wait for criminal proceedings to fully conclude or for appeals to run their course before revoking a license.
So they just leave them practicing in the meantime.
Yeah. And hospitals doing background checks sometimes misdemeanors, or they prioritize a candidate's high-demand specialty over their personal conduct. Andrew was let go from Hannibal Regional Hospital after that 2025 strangling incident, but because he kept his license, he was actively looking for work elsewhere.
Well, here is where public pressure actually moved the needle where the system failed. On July 3rd, 2026, Fitzgibbon Hospital had to put out a public statement on their Facebook page. The community outcry had become so deafening about this unfolding investigation that the hospital publicly announced they were rejecting him as a candidate.
Wow. It shows that while the legal system might have faltered with that plea deal, the community is refusing to look away.
Exactly.
The Rolls County Sheriff's Office is actively investigating this as an open case. They are waiting on those crucial toxicology results, and they are investigating whether Andrew violated his probation with those June allegations of pushing Allie down the stairs.
And we want to help with that. So if you are listening to this and you know anything, the tip line for the Rolls County Sheriff's Office is 573-985-5611. I want to repeat that, 573-985-5611.
Because when you look at the totality of this case, it is the tragic synthesis of a vibrant woman whose completely natural desire for romance was weaponized against her. She was lured in by a man who used his medical prestige, his wealth, and his societal standing as an impenetrable shield to commit acts of escalating terror in plain sight.
So what does this all mean for us? I think it forces a really uncomfortable realization. We are conditioned to think that danger looks a certain way. But this type of abuser operates more like a pathogen that evades the immune system by mimicking healthy cells.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Yeah, he used his medical degree, his wealth, and his status as a disguise to bypass all of society's usual alarm bells. It fundamentally challenges us to reevaluate what domestic bliss looks like from the outside. A big house and a fancy degree can just be the walls of a very expensive cell.
That brings up a final chilling concept to ponder as this investigation unfolds.
Okay, what is it?
Think about the role of modern technology in the life cycle of abuse today. In the past, abuse behind closed doors was almost entirely a matter of he said, she said. It lived in the shadows.
Right, it was just their word against his.
Exactly. But today, perpetrators install smart cameras to monitor and control their domains. In doing so, they are unwittingly creating an undeniable digital record of their own crimes. It leaves us with a profound question. Does the digital panopticon of the modern smart home offer a new, insidious leash for abusers to control their victims? Or, when a tragedy like this strikes, does it ultimately serve as a victim's unbreakable voice from beyond the grave?
Wow. The footage Allie saved might just be exactly that, a voice that an expert in airways couldn't permanently silence. We'll be keeping a close eye on New London, Missouri. Until next time, stay curious and take care of each other.